I think back in the day when the Xbox One had came out, I was very much of the belief that there was a lot of media bias going on in terms of how people treated the Xbox One, how people treated Microsoft, and even to this day, I don't want to make it sound like it's a overt thing where it's just as bad as it was back then, but I do notice that people look at Xbox and they almost are waiting with like a pad and a paper to write down anytime something potentially negative comes up. One of the things that I noticed was the second that Halo Infinite fell out of the top 5 on Xbox, people jumped on it, right? It's the end of Halo, right? Let's not, never mind that, it's a game as a service and it's going to continue to get better, etc., etc. Let's report on that right now, right? Also, Crossfire X. I always thought this game looked kind of mid. I didn't know what to make of it. It was a free-to-play multiplayer. Yeah, Remedy was doing the single player, but it just didn't really scream quality to me. But, that game is really, really bad, and people are calling it as it is, really, really bad. But the same people that are calling it bad are really kind of attacking Microsoft over this, like it's Microsoft's fault or whatever. Look, that's like blaming Sony for Godfall. Okay, a lackluster game, right? Like, there's going to be lackluster games all around, but it's like the people that really kind of get out of that go out of their way to attack Microsoft for every little thing, you just kind of, I don't know, it just gets old after a while. Now with this, like with the Digital Foundry thing and also developer kind of trash in Xbox, I don't think I agree with what they're saying here. Like, I don't know how else to put it, but it sounds kind of crazy to me, and I did want to get into it, so let's jump into this video. What's up, everybody? I'm Crap Gamer, and of course, this is Crap Gamer Reviews, your home for gaming news, opinions, reviews, and of course, much more. You'll probably notice some changes around here, but that shouldn't stop you from giving us a like and possibly consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some of your free time with me today. I know you guys are all busy with wife, kids, family, friends, whatever, husbands, school, work, but I appreciate you coming out here and spending some time watching the videos. Please leave a like, share it out. If you do subscribe, make sure you hit the bell and click on all notifications. That way you get notified of everything. Now, I felt it very much something that I wanted to talk about because you see a lot of people talk about this. I know that Digital Foundry was talking about this, but there was also this other instance of this where the Dying Light 2 developer says the Xbox Series S GPU was actually holding it back because the game is only 30 frames per second on the Series S. But the main thing that I would point out to this is that Assassin's Creed Valhalla is 60 frames on the Series S. This fully open world looks miles and miles better graphically than this game, yet can perform and do better than this. And they're both cross-gen, mind you. And then you also come to find out that the PlayStation 5 version of Dying Light 2 is just the PS4 Pro version with an uncapped frame rate. So you kind of wonder what's going on here. Poor development issues as well. So the lead designer says that the lack of GPU power is the main reason for 30 frames per second. Dying Light 2 Stay Human came out a little bit ago, and it appears to be a massive hit, as it's a big success on Steam already, and fans can likely expect it to be a top game for a while. The console version of Dying Light 2 also appears to be solid. On PS5 and Xbox Series X, Dying Light 2 allows players to choose from 3 different modes. Graphical option focuses on running at the maximum possible resolution, while another aims to deliver a stable 60 FPS. The third option, known as Quality Mode, adds ray tracing and other graphical features. Both Resolution Mode and Quality Mode run Dying Light 2 at 30 frames per second on PS5 and Series X, while the Series S, on the other hand, has one graphics mode, and developer has clarified the main reason behind this decision. The information comes from the Twitter account. The lead designer of Dying Light 2, a fan mentioned that they got motion sickness while playing Dying Light 2 due to the lack of an FOV slider, head bobbing, and 30 FPS. And they replied by saying the Series S can only run Dying Light 2 at 30 frames due to its limited GPU power, but the developer will look into improving the frame rate in the future. He also stated that motion sickness will be addressed in the first patch, and Techland will consider motion blur and FOV in the next update. The developer will prioritize resolving the co-op issues facing by Dying Light, as server problems and disconnects, blah, blah, blah. Most games on Xbox Series S are simply scaled down releases of a Series X version, with hits to graphical resolution and sometimes graphical settings. But the frame rate thing is a little bit of a weird situation because there's a lot of games, 95% of games, current gen games, are running at 60 frames. which is incredibly awesome if you think about it for a $299 console. But there's a lot of hate on this lately, and I don't understand why there tends to be so much of this just in kind of happening in the future or whatever. But yeah, it does make me a little bit upset, because we know that the Xbox Series S can run games at 120 frames. You know, it can run games at 60 frames. It can run games at 120. And then this isn't the only instance of this. There's also a horror game called Martha is Dead that's going to run at 4K 30 or 1080 60 on PS5 and Xbox Series X, 1080p 30 on the Series S. So I don't, again, it's something that you kind of scratch your head and you just go, I don't understand this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just being honest. How can a game like these games should be running higher than 1080 60 on PS5 and Xbox Series X? Again, Martha is Dead seems to have a lot of elements to work with it. Speaking in this interview, the technical director actually mentioned what it's going to be able to do. 1080p 60 on PS5 and the Series X, while the Series S is 1080 30. While the disparity will be disappointing to some, they say that with the use of super resolution, the game's resolution on Series S is likely to be higher. Both the PS5 and Xbox Series X have two modes, one at 4K 30 and one at 1080 60, while the Series S just has 1080 30. It is important to mention that in any case, use of super resolution very often brings the 1080p versions to higher resolution, even on Series S, so that resolution gap will probably be less noticeable. But again, you have some of these games, and it just tends to me to look like they have a situation where some of these games really end up kind of the developers are on the smaller side, and so that tends to be something that realistically, you know, ends up not working out well for the Series S, because I think that it's crazy that, you know, the Series S has been able to do so many games the way that it has at 60 frames or higher, while certain newer games tend, and people are using that as a way to say, oh, well, look out, because the newer games and in the future and things like that, the games aren't gonna look as good and what have you. I think that that's really kind of a misnomer. I don't think that's accurate at all. I think that the Xbox Series S is quite a good console, especially for the price point, and not everybody cares about 4K. While I do think that, you know, some people do, then there's other consoles for you. But if you're just looking for, especially if you're just like more of a casual or something, or you don't have a 4K TV, I don't see why you would be, you know, upset about getting a Series S at all. You know, I just think that it's a really powerful little console that's small and packs a punch, and I think that's exactly what Microsoft wanted it to do. And to be honest with you, the more I look at it and the more people that are trying to get a PlayStation 5, I wish maybe Sony had come out with something similar, you know, a little lesser than 4K PS5 that people could buy, because I feel like that thing would probably sell like hotcakes. But yeah, it does get a little bit old. It does seem like there's a lot of I hate to call it media bias, but I guess it's media bias. You know, I don't know. It just seems a little crazy to me that all of a sudden people are trashing Xbox at every turn. And that's coming from me, somebody who trashed Xbox for over a year and a half because the lack of AAA games. But I feel like that is a little bit warranted, even though I got a little heavy-handed and out of hand with it. Whereas some of this stuff, it just seems like people are waiting outside the window to see Xbox screw up. I don't know. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Sound off, rate, comment, subscribe. Rack 'em up, fact 'em up, crap gamer 'em up. Thanks for watching. Crap Gamer out.